Hey there friends, today we'll be going through this rearranging question. Now, there are two ways to do it. Firstly, we would need to form a quadratic from what I can see. I can tell that because we would need to get rid of those fractions, and if we were to get rid of this fraction here, we would need to multiply everything by x minus 1, and since we have x in here, multiplying it by another x would form an x squared, so most likely we would need to form a quadratic, and then we can either use completing the square or a quadratic formula to make x the subject. So let's crack on. Firstly, I want to get rid of this fraction here. I do that by multiplying everything by x minus 1. So I end up with x plus a times x minus 1 over 3 plus 2x equals to 4 bracket x minus 1. Then I want to get rid of this fraction, and to do that I multiply everything by 3 now. So I get x plus a, x minus 1, plus 6x is equals to 12 bracket x minus 1. Now let's just expand everything. So I get x squared minus x plus ax minus a plus 6x is equals to 12x minus 12. Now let's move everything to one side in order to form our quadratic equation in a form of ax squared plus bx plus c. Any quadratic equation takes this general form. So let's do this. We move the right to the left. So when moving 12x, it becomes minus 12x. When moving minus 12, it becomes plus 12. So we end up with x squared minus x plus ax minus a plus 6x minus 12x plus 12 is equals to 0. Let's collect all the like terms. So we go minus x plus 6x, that means it's plus 5x minus 12x, that's minus 7x. So I'll just write minus 7 here, and I'll remove the 6 and 12x. Now we're not yet done because we don't have the general ax squared plus bx plus c, because as you can see, there is one coefficient for x squared, there is one coefficient for x, and there is a c. But in our case, we have one coefficient for x squared, but we have two different coefficients for x. So to solve this problem, all we have to do is to use factorization. So we write x squared plus bracket minus 7. I'll write it as a minus 7. Basically, all I did is I put this there and this I put there. So instead of writing minus 7x plus ax, I can rewrite it as plus ax minus 7x and remove that. So I do this, a minus 7 bracket closed x minus a plus 12. That's it. Our a is 1, our b is a minus 7, and our c is minus a plus 12. Now we can either use quadratic formula or completing a square. Let's use quadratic formula first. So it's minus b plus or minus square root b squared minus 4ac over 2a. Now as I said before, b is a minus 7, so we have to write minus a minus 7 plus or minus square root a minus 7 all squared minus 4 times a, which is 1, times c, which is minus a plus 12, over 2 times 1 because a is 1. And that's it. Then we just go on to expand it. This is what we get after expansion, and minus 14a plus 4a just becomes minus 10a. And 49 minus 48 just becomes 1. That's it. This is our final answer using quadratic formula. Let me write that at the top. So that's quadratic formula. Now let's move on to completing the square. So to complete the square, we just need to take half of b, x, plus half of b, so a minus 7 over 2, squared, minus this thing squared, because if we were to expand this, we would get this plus a minus 7 over 2 squared. So we need to eliminate this squared by subtracting an a minus 7 over 2 squared after the bracket. And then we have the rest of the things, so minus a plus 12. Now all we have to do is rearrange. So let's move all of this to the right side and then square everything and subtract a minus 7 over 2. So moving everything to the other side, this equation becomes a minus 7 over 2 squared plus a minus 12. And square rooting everything becomes square root. And important to note, plus or minus before the square root. That's just the property of any square root. A square root answer can be either a positive or a negative, because minus 2 squared is 4, as well as 2 squared is also 4. And I have no way of knowing whether it was minus 2 or 2 that gave me this 4. So plus or minus square root of this. And then subtract a minus 7 over 2, so it becomes minus a minus 7 over 2 plus or minus square root of that. Now, to prove to you that this and this is the same answer, I'm going to expand everything in here and try rewrite this in this format. So I'll write minus a plus 7 over 2 plus or minus, expanding the bracket should give me a squared minus 14a plus 49 over 4 plus a minus 12. Let's make it one single fraction. So we write 4 times a minus 12 over 4. Combining those two fractions together just leaves us with this. Expanding this bracket gives us 4a minus 48. So plus 4a minus 48, and it's still all square root. Now we can rewrite the square root as a square root of the top and square root of the bottom denominator. And square rooting a 4 will give us plus or minus 2, but since there is a plus or minus in front of the fraction here, we can just write it as minus a plus 7 over 2 plus or minus square root of the top divided by 2. And now we can just simply combine those two fractions together to make it, now minus 14a plus 4a is just minus 10a. 49 minus 48 is again 1. And that's it. We end up with the exact same answer as we did using the quadratic formula. So both of those methods are right. You can use either of those. The completing the square is slightly more challenging, but it's a good way of practicing your completing the square. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did and if you found it useful, please consider subscribing, leave a like and a comment down below, and I'll see you soon. Bye bye for now.